The Kansas City Chiefs have about a week and a half to get a deal done with Trey Smith. Will they get it done before the franchise tag deadline expires on July 15th? Today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Hey, Chiefs Kingdom, welcome back for another episode of Locked On Chiefs, your daily podcast covering the Kansas City Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you for always making Locked On Chiefs your first listen of the day. Don't forget, we're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube as well. I'm your host, Chris Clark. You can find me over on Chiefs Corner. We're going to be talking a lot about the 53-man roster over the next couple of weeks as we head up into training camp. Training camp's about a month away at this point. Well, actually about 3 weeks away at this point because it's starting a little bit earlier than normal. Kansas City is in a situation where they have to figure out if they can get a deal done with Trey Smith before the deadline on July 15th. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. What does the market look like for the NFL, and when you're paying top guards, what does that look like at the NFL right now? But we're going to start with where the Chiefs are salary cap wise and what it means for a potential deal for Trey Smith. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Thank you, FanDuel. We really appreciate your sponsorship. There's so much to talk about when you start looking at this Chiefs team and the salary cap and how it's going to affect the 2025 season. As it sits right now, the Kansas City Chiefs have about $10.9 million in cap space. That is how it sits with 51 men on the roster. That is what counts against the salary cap at this time of year. That is what is going to be taken into account when we start having the rest of this conversation. Right now, Trey Smith's number is $23.402 million on that salary cap number. So he has taken a large chunk of what they could potentially have available. We'll get into what his cost could be a little bit later. But when we look at $10.9 million, what does that really break down to? What can Kansas City do with that money? How is it going to affect what they do for the rest of the 2025 off season and before they get into training camp? And can they make any additional moves? The reality is not really that much. They can't really do much with what they have available right now. The reason is as I said, this is the top 51 contracts for the Chiefs as it sits right now. That means that they have to add whoever is on the bottom of that top 50 below the top 51. What that means is they have at least a couple of players that they will be likely having to add to their roster that are going to have a salary cap number of at least $1 million, probably by the end of the off season and when you start getting into final cutdown days. So really the reality of looking at their salary cap number is they're likely to be closer to maybe $7 or $8 million in cap space before you even start talking about the practice squad. There's 16 players on the practice squad, about $250,000 a piece. There's, it's obviously a little bit off, but you're going to have to take those into account as well. Once you start taking into account all of those players, you're going to get down to a point where you only have maybe $3 to $4 to $5 million left in salary cap space for 2025. They need to get a deal done with Trey Smith because that is not going to be enough salary cap to be able to do anything to try to improve this roster before you get into training camp or even the regular season. So Kansas City needs to be looking to see if they can get a deal done with Trey Smith. And we're going to talk about what it could cost to get that deal done in the next segment. But right now, they're looking at sitting at about $10.9 million. I think once all said and done and you get your practice squad and you get a couple additional players and probably a couple more players on IR, you're probably looking at $3 to $4 to $5 million of available cap space as it sits right now if they don't get a deal done with Trey Smith. That severely limits what you can do, severely limits if you can claim somebody or if you can make a trade to improve your roster headed into training camp, which I'm sure Kansas City would love to be able to do. Do I think they get a deal done with Trey Smith? I do think they get something done. So it probably will be a much better situation for Kansas City in 2025 than what I'm thinking it is right now. But the reality is that they need to be trying to figure out how they can get a little bit more cap space if they're not able to get a deal done with Trey Smith, because if they can't, they're not going to have any room to be able to maneuver. The other reality of this is that's assuming you don't make any other player signings or extensions before the season starts. And that is definitely possible. We've talked about maybe trying to get a deal done with George Karlaftis, Trent McDuffie, possibly Leo Chenal. Those are some of the names that I would expect that they could be trying to get a deal done with. But I think that the Trey Smith deal comes in first and foremost. The one guy that they have the potential of getting a little bit of salary cap space from would be Juwan Taylor. I don't think that they want to go that direction, because if they get salary cap space from Juwan Taylor, that's something that would carry forward into 2026. I don't think he's going to be here in 2026. So that is a move I would not expect Kansas City to want to make. It's a move that they may have to make if they can't get a deal done, but that is something that is possible. They could reduce his cap number, because right now it's at $27.4 million for Juwan Taylor in 2025, because they have adjusted his contract the first 2 years. So it's possible they do it a third year. I guarantee you it's something that they do not want to do. But at this point, they're going to have to try to find money if they can't get a deal done with Trey Smith. What is the cost of what a deal would look like with Trey Smith? We're going to talk about that right after this. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and it makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. Are you new to FanDuel? New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Again, that's open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. What does the guard market look like in 2025? What is the cost for some of the guards that are under contract right now for Kansas City? As it sits right now, Kansas City is at the top of the market when they're paying $23.4 million to a guard. I don't think that that's going to stick. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they get a deal done with Trey Smith, but he is at the top of the market with his average per year of 23.4. Landon Dickerson has a deal that is 4 years, pays him $21 million a year. Chris Lindstrom, same position, $102.5 million a year, $102.5 million, $20.5 million a year. And Robert Hunt has a $100 million contract over 5 years. Quentin Nelson has an $80 million contract over 4 years. 20 to 21 million is where they're sitting at that top four if you take out Trey Smith. Aaron Banks comes in at number 5 without Trey Smith and is at 19.25 with a 4-year deal for $477 million. So that is where the guard market sits right now. Let's not forget, Creed Humphrey got a contract for $18 million a year, 4 years, $72 million, $18 million a year. That was the top of the center market. He is considered one of the best centers, if not the best center in the NFL by most of the NFL, and that is why he's getting paid like he is the best center of the NFL. When it comes down to looking at Trey Smith's deal, the question is he going to come in over the 21 million? I would imagine that his agents are going to be asking for closer to the 23.4, which is what the franchise tag is giving him. But I don't think Kansas City is going to be expecting to pay him $23 million a year, and I think that if that's what he's asking for, this deal is not going to get done. But some of the other things that need to be looked at when you start looking at some of these guard contracts is what is the total guaranteed money? It's a wide range of total guarantees. You're looking at between 48 million and 29 million, basically. And those are between the number 1 and number 2 rated guards. I'm taking Trey Smith out of this at this point. Chris Lindstrom signed a 5-year deal, got $48 million guaranteed, a little bit more than $48 million guaranteed. Landon Dickerson signed a 4-year deal, got $1 million more than Lindstrom per year, but only got $28.9 million guaranteed. That's a huge disparity between the two. The question is what is Trey Smith going to get when you start looking at how this deal shakes out? I don't think he's going to want anything longer than a 4-year deal. Kansas City is going to be asking for a 5-year deal because they want to be able to spread out the signing bonus and the proration. But I would expect that this deal is going to be something that's going to be looked at as a 4-year deal, more than likely, for Trey Smith. But as I said, the biggest thing to look at is the total guaranteed money. And with such a large disparity of almost $20 million between Chris Lindstrom and Landon Dickerson, the guaranteed money is going to be something definitely to watch. And how is it spread out over the life of the contract? For example, Lindstrom's contract was signed before the 2023 season. It consisted of a $27.5 million signing bonus, and his 2023 salary and roster bonus, and his 2024 base salary. So if you look at his 2023 base salary is $4.2 million. He had a signing bonus of 27.5. He had a roster bonus of 4. So he had a total guarantee of 48.2, which was all over in the first 2 years of the contract. He also got a base salary in 2024 that was fully guaranteed, and it looks like they restructured his deal in 2024 to spread that out and to lower his salary in 2024, which isn't shocking based on some of the numbers. He was one of the first guards that was signed after a guy named Quentin Nelson was signed a couple of years ago. So when you look at this deal and you look at how it was, I think he's going to get a deal a lot closer to Chris Lindstrom than Landon Dickerson, because if you look at Landon Dickerson's deal, he got $28.9 million in fully guaranteed, $19.9 in signing bonus. So that's a full $8 million less in signing bonus, signed a year after Chris Lindstrom, and got $9 million less in signing bonus. And his 24 and 25 salaries are fully guaranteed. So when I look at this, to me, it's one of those situations where if Kansas City wants to get Trey Smith, a deal done with Trey Smith, they're going to have to give him a larger signing bonus. I'm guessing his signing bonus is going to be somewhere in the realm of over $25 million, because if you look at what he's costing them this year alone, it's 23.4. So to me, I would expect that the signing bonus is going to be coming in at over that $25 million amount. And then the question is going to be, what are your total guarantees going to be? I do think that this deal gets done. If you go back and you look at Quentin Nelson's deal, which got signed, it looks like after the 2022 season. So this is 3 years old now at this point. He got a signing bonus of $31 million, which is even higher than what Chris Lindstrom got, and $60 million in total guarantees. But he was looked at as the best guard in the NFL, and I don't think that there's anybody that would question whether or not he was the best guard in the NFL that season. Chris Lindstrom was looked at as one of the better guards in the NFL in 2023, and Landon Dickerson was looked at as one of the better or best guards in the NFL in 2024. Trey Smith is in that category of being one of the probably top 10 guards. Is he top 5? That's going to be the question. I'm sure he feels like he is, and Kansas City wants him to be here, and they're willing to pay him $23.4 million to do it, because they want the continuity on their offensive line. They want the continuity with Creed Humphrey, and they want to protect Patrick Mahomes. But I don't know that they feel like he is a top 3 guard in the NFL. I would imagine that they probably look at him as being top 6 or 7, but the contract is really going to be a big question. What are they going to pay him? How much of it's going to be guaranteed? How long is it going to be? And we're going to talk about all of that next. Reminder, the largest contract to a guard right now is $21 million a year. That is to Chris Lindstrom. I do think that that's possible that Kansas City would do that. I think it's possible that they would do even more. But what could they really look at? What would it look like if they were to go and give him the biggest contract to a guard right now? Because I don't think that they're going to be coming in at 23.4. But if they were willing to do something that was going to get him, maybe a split between where Landon Dickerson is, and I apologize, it was Landon Dickerson that got $21 million a year versus Chris Lindstrom getting 20.5. If they split where Landon Dickerson is versus where Trey Smith is on the current franchise tag, I think that you could get probably pretty close to what Trey Smith would be comfortable with, what his agents could be comfortable with. And I have structured this deal to be 4 years for $90 million. with a $28 million signing bonus. So that is going to prorate out at $7 million a year on the signing bonus. That's going to be something that's going to go against the cap. The nice thing about doing that is it would drop his salary cap number in year one down to a total of $9 million, which frees up, which don't forget, it was at 23.4. Now it's at $9 million in total because I also gave him a $2 million base salary in 2024, 2025, and it's fully guaranteed. So he's got a full guarantee of the $9 million in year, well, the $28 million plus the $2 million that he's going to get in salary. Kansas City generally doesn't do that for the salaries. It's probably going to be a little bit different. I'm just trying to make it easy on the numbers. The other thing that you look at is you would probably guarantee his base salary in 2026 as well. That's another $15 million. At this point, that's what I'm guessing his base salary is going to be, or somewhere similar to that would be $15 million in 2026. So at that point, he would get, a signing bonus of 28, a guaranteed salary in the first year of 2, which puts him at $30 million in the first year guaranteed money. Second year, you give him another base salary of $15 million. That is something that would be guaranteed. That gets him to $45 million guaranteed. And the way I'm looking at doing this in 2027, it would be another bonus that would be guaranteed in 2027 for $3 million. That gets him to 48. That gets him to where the total guarantees would be at the top of the guard market at 48.202 for Chris Lindstrom. Maybe you give him a little bit more so he goes over that. Maybe you guarantee a little bit more on his salary in 2027 to get him over the total guarantee amount. But if you did a deal for 4 years and $90 million, you're giving him total guarantees of around $48 million. So you're guaranteeing more than half the contract. I think you'd probably be okay with doing that for Trey Smith. And then you're in a situation where you have him here for the next 4 years. What this comes down to is you're looking at a 4-year deal for $90 million total with a little over $48 million guaranteed. That puts you at over 50% guaranteed. You'd be at $22.5 million a year, which splits the high point of where the guards are right now and where Trey Smith is on the franchise tag. I think that could get the deal done. Obviously, if you decide and Trey Smith wants to go to a 5th year, you could do that. It's going to be non-guaranteed money. It would allow you to spread out the signing bonus a little bit more. Maybe you give him a little bit more in signing bonus and you drop his number down even further. Maybe you give him a $30 million signing bonus and you drop his salary cap number down another $2 million, down another $1 million a year. I apologize as I'm sitting here thinking through this. At that point, it would be $6 million a year prorated on the salary cap versus the $7 million that it is right now. But that's something that you could do. It would give you the opportunity of, getting him to a point where he's under contract for the next 5 years. You have money guaranteed into year 3, which I still have with the 4-year deal. Maybe you give him a little bit more of a signing bonus, which gets him to a point where he feels a little bit more comfortable about taking a lesser hit in 2026 or 2027. We'll see how that ends up going. I do think that this is the kind of structure you're going to see with the Trey Smith deal. It's going to be a 4 or 5 year contract. More than likely, it's going to be in excess of likely the $21 million that Landon Dickerson got, and probably closer to the $23 million, if not almost to the 23.4. That is probably what his agent is looking for. And it makes sense because that's what they're paying him right now. So to me, this deal makes a lot of sense to get done. If you look at it from another perspective, you're basically doubling by going with about $48 million in guarantees. You're basically doubling almost what he's getting in the salary, in his guaranteed salary, the franchise tag in year 1, and you're giving that to him as a guarantee for the next 3 years. I do think that this is a deal that can get done with Trey Smith. I think that if you look at the numbers, if you look at what it does for Kansas City, it gets them Trey Smith next to Creed Humphrey for the next 3 or 4 years, which is exactly what they want. It stabilizes the interior of their offensive line. If they can get somebody like Kingsley Suamataia to come in and be a starter at that left guard spot, it really gives them a young core that they can build an offensive line around. then you got to hope that Josh Simmons can come in and be the starter at left tackle, and you have to figure out what you're going to do at right tackle in 2026. But that's another problem that you can deal with later. I do think this is a deal that can get done with Trey Smith. I do think that they get a deal done with Trey Smith. I'm going to be curious as to how much they get it done for. Let me know in the comments what you think they'll get a deal done with for Trey Smith, how much you think that they're going to pay him. Again, this deal is just kind of an example of what I'm thinking. It was $19 million base salary in 2027 with a bonus of $3 million in 2027. And then in 2028, I was looking at a $23 million base salary to get the numbers to work out to about $90 million over 4 years. Again, I think that this is a deal that gets done with Trey Smith. I think Kansas City wants to get it done. I don't think that they want to be in a situation where they have to pay him $23.4 million in 2025, because that is not going to help them in 2026. They're not going to be able to franchise him again, and they're going to want to keep him in Kansas City to protect Patrick Mahomes. And if they can get some of the salary cap space available, and I don't think I mentioned this, I apologize. If they get this deal done, they would have $25.3 million almost in cap space. After all the moves that they have left to do to get to the season, they probably are closer to $18 million in cap space. That gives them the ability to go do a deal with Trent McDuffie, go do a deal with George Karlaftis, go do a deal with Leo Chenal, or if they want to do a deal with Brian Cook or whoever they want to try to re-sign. It also gives you the ability to maybe make an addition and maybe add somebody to this Chiefs roster before training camp or before the regular season via trade or just signing off the street. This is a deal that needs to get done with Trey Smith. Again, my thought is 4 years, $90 million, about $48 million guaranteed. What do you think about that? Let me know in the comments section, and we will talk to you tomorrow.